Welcome into Moving the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks. We've got a great interview tonight, a very special guest, the head coach of the Philip Simmons Iron Horses, Eric Bendig. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate your time. We know you're busy, so it really means a lot that you're willing to hop on with us for sure. This you guys first time tuning in, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, our website, movinchains.com, podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Coach Bendig is in his seventh season as the head coach of the Philip Simmons Iron Horses. He's 37-25 overall. The Iron Horses are 10-1 on the season and finished second in Region 8 3A. Coach, let's just start with kind of your coaching background. Where'd you get started? How did you get to where you are now as the head man over at Philip Simmons?
Yeah, so when I played at football in college at Presbyterian, I just kind of was like, I'm done with football. You know, I spent like 5.5, close to 6 years in the academia part of it, 5 on the football field. And I was like, I'm going to get into finance. I'm going to go make money. I think there was some cool movies of stockbrokers on, at the time. And I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go out and make money. So I went to Charlotte for a year. I think like a month in, I was like on what is now a huge website, but it was kind of new back then, Football Scoop, just trying to find a job. I knew I wanted to be in football, but I told my mom I'd give it a year. And I think probably to the date I quit. And it was like right in May. I remember like the timing was, because I got out in May, I went in May, and I called a bunch of my friends and had a couple opportunities to GA at like really small schools. And I was like, well, I'm going to go someplace I can, where I trust, like I know somebody. So I started at Hanahan for a year and worked with Paige Wofford, who's now the head coach at Northwestern, great friend of mine. Got an opportunity to go back to my alma mater at Wando, work under Jimmy Noonan. At the time, it was right in the transition when Coach Hayes and Jimmy Noonan left. So Coach Hayes was retiring from coaching, and Jimmy Noonan was coming in. So he kept me on staff. Got a chance to work there for 6 years, worked for some great guys, worked with Jamel Smith, who's at Lucy Beckham now. Really good coaching tree that we had there. And then I went to Ashley Ridge, got my kind of, Jimmy Noonan called the plays. He was never really going to give that up. I had to kind of branch out on my own. So I went to Ashley Ridge for 2 years, worked with a great group, Kenny Walker, who's now at Fort Dorchester as an assistant, and some great assistants. They were great people there that are still there. And then the job opened up. My wife was the elementary teacher at Philip Simmons Elementary, still is. They housed, before the school was built, the admin team in the Philip Simmons Elementary. And so my wife would go by like every day with her kids and just be like, the next head coach is Eric Bendig. And, I think just like by osmosis and just pestering, and like, hopefully I did well in the interview process. I got the job at Philip Simmons, and it's been kind of a whirlwind ever since. But yeah, this is my 7th year here. And what is that, like 15th overall 15th overall. So it's pretty, it's gone by quickly.
That connection there, that's kind of special with your wife being the elementary school teacher. How many of her former students are now some of your players that have
Dude, it's getting close.
Program?
It's getting close. So that's like, they're in like 6th grade, right? So
okay.
My daughter's in 6th grade. She was in kindergarten at the time, in a different class that didn't allow, and she didn't want to be in my wife's class. But they're in like 6th grade. So they're about to start B team. So it's about to get pretty weird. My daughter's friends, like my wife's old, former kids that she taught. It's cool, like it really is, because it has a small town feel. And we have Philip Simmons Elementary, Philip Simmons Middle, and Philip Simmons High, and they're pretty much all right. They're not on the same campus, but they're really close, a block away. And so that's pretty cool, man. You don't see that a lot. And I've been here, only in the state of South Carolina, and you don't really see that. When I was at Ashley Ridge, we had great feeder programs, but it's all, it's Oak Brook Middle, it's Gregg Middle, and those are great schools. But it's like we have direct feeder schools right here that are all Iron Horses, and it's just a huge kind of family environment.
So you're the only coach in Philip Simmons history. Kind of describe that process of, building the program, and, what were some of those core foundational pieces that have led to your early success?
Yeah. So the running joke is that, while I do have the most wins, I am also the losingest coach in history. I'm very, very much humbled by that pretty much regularly every time somebody brings it up. But it was a whirlwind, man. Like, we didn't have a field. I got the job, and it was like, here you go. They had ordered helmets because the helmet process is so long to get them. I got hired in February of that year, and it was just go. I mean, I was designing weight rooms. I was forming a staff. I was, given, sort of a budget to be able to come under and get uniforms and the gear that we needed. And that was just like drinking from a fire hose. It was a fun process. I don't know if I'd ever want to do it again. I would, I guess, but it would have to be, probably in like a Berkeley County. I don't know if I could go outside of this county and do it again. I kind of have like the feel of it now and the purchasing and all the stuff that comes with it. I would say the toughest part was hiring a staff because, I do only as good as the guys I have. We have a phenomenal staff now, but it's taken, this is year 7. It's taken this long to get, where we are. And we've lost some good coaches to better, I would say better, bigger schools or better opportunities for them. Like our great DBs coach last year is the defense coordinator at Cross, and they're killing it. Omar Collier, unbelievable. But, that was a great chance for him to, advance. And, we had a great strength coach and a football coach, and now he's at Somerville. So these guys have, I've lost a few to places that in terms might be bigger, but that's probably been like my biggest thing because they're around the kids, just as much or more than I am. And I've got, I've been lucky with that great staff, but just putting the foundations, we're really into that community piece I was talking about, Cane Hoy and Hugie, and then this Clements Ferry area in Daniel Island. In theory, it's really different ends of the spectrum socioeconomically. And football is like the great equalizer, right? And I think basketball does a good job of that too, but we've had to really pull in the community, let them know that we're here for, we're on Friday night, we're late in Thursdays too. We're a service, sorry, my dog's going crazy. We're service for this community, something to do. And we want to make it as, big and the pomp and circumstance. And those things have been kind of the core background of what we're doing. Talking about constantly like the struggles that we've gone through winning the day is huge for us. And, we try to be as efficient as possible, work as efficiently as possible. Football, you don't want to call it a year-round sport, but you are doing something for football year-round. I don't want to get them right back into the weight room like the day after the season, but there is that part of it. There is that piece where you got to train. It's just a cyclical thing that just keeps coming and coming and coming. So we've been talking about that with the group we have now that, we want to keep this going. We want to keep 23 going. And, because when it hits that Monday and you're turning equipment and you're meeting and you're kind of finishing it out, there is that piece that we have to move forward. And we want everybody to continue to want to be playing in the 23 season. And I think our guys have really embraced that. They don't want to be done. But yeah, it's been 7 years. It's flown by, a lot of gray hairs, the few tough times at the beginning there,
Sure.
We were 2-8 and you look back and it's like, how'd we win 2? There's like that. What is that? Like the Bull Durham when it's like, hey, we had won a game or something. It's like, how did we win 1? Like, that's how I felt for sure. I was like, oh my God, you watch film from like 2017, you're like, we were piecing it together. So it's been
a long way.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Coach, looking at this year's team, last week in round 1, you guys beat Manning 48-22. What'd you do well in that ball game? Let's come away with a big win.
I wouldn't say we were like injured at all. Like, that's not like where I would go with it. We were just a little banged up. We had some key guys that were struggling a little bit with some, wear and tear. We're in the 12th week of the season, the 3rd month. And we got a couple guys that were just fully back physically, but also mentally. And we had to get them kind of a full week of practice and those kinds of things. It was the best first half I've ever been around with a team. We scored on every possession. We did great in special teams, and we had some turnovers and stopped them, on all their 4 drives. So it really was just this like perfect storm of the intensity, the energy. The sideline was great. Guys all week in practice were really putting in the effort of, owning their roles, the scout team guys and guys that might play 10, 15 snaps as opposed to, an entire series on the side of the ball. So it was just kind of this like perfect storm. Hopefully we didn't waste it. But it was a good football team that we played in Manning. We didn't take them lightly, that's for sure. And, they still got, some points on the board in the second half and, kind of exposed us a little bit in the defensive side in the run game. But, our guys really kind of bought into the game plan, and our coaches do a really good job. And I'm always impressed with what they put together each week, on both sides of the ball and in special teams. So it was just kind of that perfect storm that hit. And hopefully we can kind of use that as a good momentum to go forward.
Coach, I did a horrific job. I saw you guys play a few weeks ago, so I did a bad job of explaining your style of play and your schemes in our recap show. So I'm glad that you're here today. If you don't mind, for the viewers and listeners, kind of explain what you run on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, and do you call plays on either side?
So I used to call plays on the offensive side. That's been my side of the ball. I've never been on the defensive side of the ball. I've always been involved in like special teams, but I've never been on the defensive side of the ball. So I have full trust in Alex Renner, our defensive coordinator, to go and put a plan together. He talks to me about it. I tell him what I see and kind of like, what I feel like needs to be done and some corrections, things like that. Defensively, we had kind of been in more of a 3-4, 4-4 type of mentality. We weren't blitzing a lot at the beginning of the year. I feel like I'm a little bit more aggressive. So we've had some changes to things that we want to do, but it's all within that scheme. Great defensive back play. We've been able to go a little bit more this year to that man coverage mindset because we play so many teams that are just running the ball. Like this week, Broken Case is going to run the ball. So they can throw it if they want to, but they run the ball. So we kind of man it up, try to get as many guys in the box as we can, create some confusion for the offensive line and running backs and quarterbacks by slants and bringing some pressures here and there. But that's defensively, kind of the background that we have. We offensively, like my background, if anybody kind of like a lot of people, that have been around for a while, I used to be like a big air raid guy, and that's kind of like I loved like the simplicity yet complexity of the air raid. And at Ashley Ridge, it was a lot of throwing the ball. Now we had 2 Division I quarterbacks and brothers, Matthew and Stephen Duncan, but it was like that was my mindset. I came in and I was going to spread it out and do all that. And we still like base ourselves out of 11 personnel, 10 personnel. But then all of a sudden you start getting like these really good running backs. And then we got some good some good tight ends and some guys that can kind of block and run at the same time, fullback type bodies. So we've gone a little bit south, I guess, like into the past. We've gone from the air to the ground for sure. So our offensive coordinator, Tam Garrett, he's kind of the same way as me. He came in that spread background, but we just realized kind of what we have. And, we're starting to get a lot bigger and a lot stronger up front. And it was like, what equalizes a lot of things in high school football and even in like the college game. Look at Michigan, look at Georgia,
sure.
Run the ball. And so we really just, try to find ways to make it as simple as we can for the 5 guys blocking up front, the 2 guys maybe that we have a tight end and fullback, and do some different things in the motions and the way that we align with the backs to make it look like we have a bunch of different running plays when in all reality we have only 3 or 4. And I think that's what's been over the last couple of years since like 2001 for sure, or sorry, 2021 has been kind of our bread and butter, is trying to really establish the run and not going away from it, and just really trying to pound it for, eat up some clock, shorten the game, limit possessions of the other team, nothing crazy that's, going to innovate anybody, but it's worked for us over the last couple of years.
Certainly worked well this year, it seems like. Coach, who are some of the guys that are having maybe special seasons for you and some of the big-time playmakers for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I always probably take way too long, but, these guys work so hard and I love them. But KJ Asbury obviously has been doing it for a while, all-time leading rusher in school history. He's close to 2,000 now, yards rushing. He has unbelievable vision, and he works really hard, strong kid. He is fast. He clocks in every week on those catapult GPS things that we have at like 21, hits 22 miles an hour, which is huge. And so that's like legitimate data. Sometimes people say they run a 4.3 and they run a 4.6, something like that. But that's his 40 time. I don't know. But when we clock him on those GPSs, it's impressive. He's great. He actually, catches some snaps at quarterback, try to get in like, whatever you want to call it, wildcat or whatever. And then he's a good pass catcher too. So he's been pretty deadly for us, and especially the last couple of years, but definitely this year. Sherrod Williams is kind of, what people think is like this thunder and lightning mentality, but in reality, Sherrod is just as fast as KJ. He might not be like the vision guy, like he's just going to go and it's north-south. And if it's somebody's in his way, he's a grown man, looks like he's 30, he's a weight room freak, fast. And he's just one of those guys that, really puts it all on the line, when he's on the field. He was a little banged up for a couple games. So that was really, tough for us because having that 1-2 punch was big time for us. So, you go to a guy that doesn't get a lot of love in our quarterback. He's a returning starter, Tavian Orlana. Guy has done nothing but throw touchdowns when we ask him. And and he'll only have one pick, and he's just carries the team, and he's steady, and he gets us in the right formations. And then, guy that, you start pivoting those 5 offensive linemen that we have. We're a little younger than people think. We have 2 really good sophomore tackles in Stephen Pickard and Kwame Vaughn, and those guys are legit. And they've been kind of the guys that have been progressing, and they're definitely collegiate prospects. Troy Stevenson's our do-it-all guy. Obviously gets a lot of publicity. I mean, one of the best workers I've ever seen. Practices like a D1 athlete should. Always full speed, extremely fast, extremely long. So not only does he play for us on, at wide out and some of the running back spots, he goes back in the DB spot. Doesn't have a lot of stats, and we try to tell people, and I think people that watch the film and see the games like you guys watch, he doesn't have a lot of stats because he's either going to shut you down or you're not going to throw at him.
Yeah.
And that has been legit for like 3 years, two and a half years, really. And then we've had like guys that have been in the program for like 6 years now at linebacker, Bryce Smalls and Josh Gant, just tackling machines, really doing a really good job for us, just leading that. And then we have a safety who kind of plays both ways, and he's a good wide receiver for us. But he's probably a second, at college level, he's a safety. But Michael Spignardo, he's kind of the leader back there, the vocal guy, does a really good job of cleaning up the back end, making calls for us, and just leads by example. And kind of that voice that you need. So I have plenty more. A great kicking game. Sam Crocker's going to the North-South game. He's a heck of a kicker. And then we have an elite long snapper. He's got a great story behind him in Gunnar Yoakum, but I mean, we never worry about snaps. I mean, and that's not common. I've been in the places that you had to. And so he's been great for 2 years for us. He's like 100%. It's never a bad snap. So a bunch of dudes that I think are doing a really good job.
Coach, you hit on some of the players. I like to give the staff some love too. I know you talked on your coordinators too, but who are some key guys on the staff for you that have really made this thing go?
Yeah, so I said Alex Renner is our defense coordinator. He's been with me probably the longest of the coordinator group. He's our assistant head coach, and definitely my right-hand man. And he runs the defense. Tam Garrett, the offensive coordinator, has been with us for 4 years now. He's been calling the plays for 2. And the reason he's doing that is because I have full trust in him. He is a unbelievable offensive mind, but a great coach, a great person, and has a bright future. Kind of in the offseason always, he will be a head coach. Alex Renner and him will be head coaches one day. The guy that I have been with the longest in life theory is Jelani Ellington. Is our special teams coordinator, our JV head coach. He is a Cainhoy resident, Cainhoy, born and bred. Went to Hanahan when that was where like our area bused to. Coached him. His junior year was my first year at Hanahan, and so I've known him forever. He's got a bright future ahead. He is easily one of my my best hires. Selfishly to say, because of what he brings on and off the field, and just a great guy. Got a chance to hire an offensive line coach this past year, and in Rick Taylor. He was under Art Craig for a long time, and we really wanted to beef up the offensive line. And I just was like, well, if anybody has kind of a good mindset and a good background, it's somebody that worked for Art Craig. And then a guy that's been with me literally since day one. He's our running backs coach. He actually works in Dorchester County. His name's Kevin Mingo, but he's been producing running backs for us for a long time. I've got some other great guys on staff, but those are some of the guys that I highlight for sure. I've got, DB's coach that was like, he moved down and he just kind of wanted to get out of it. He moved down from Illinois. He was a head coach, had wanted nothing to do with football. And then he realized that he wanted to have something to do with football. Pops in Mike Freeman, and he's just like taken and gone. And then he's been an unbelievable addition to us. And that just kind of fell in our laps. He was already in the building and just moved down to Charleston, hated the weather up in Illinois. Was like, let's move. And so that was a huge hire for us. And then, we've just got a new strength coach in. Mac Roach came from Montana. I think similar, like in the weather situation, he was just like done with that. And we didn't know him at all. He got hired as a strength coach, and he's a great offensive mind. So, I mean, I really do feel like, it's one of the better staffs I've ever been around. And I obviously put them up against a lot of people, but I'm glad that they're with us.
Sure. Like we said, Coach, you guys are 10-1 now after round 1 of the playoffs. How pleased are you with where your team is right now? And do you kind of feel like you guys are hopefully peaking at the right time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point and a great question. I mean, it was tough. Like I felt like we had a couple different of those like peaks and valleys, right? You go up against Buford, which is a game I saw, you had, and that was probably like, you really hit the exclamation point. Everything was clicking. And, then we go into a bye week and we play a team that, we didn't really have to play our starters for an entire game the next week. And I felt like, whereas we should have been peaking, maybe the schedule and just kind of where we maybe started, to try to back off like some of the hits and some of the practice time and really kind of get a little bit more focused mentally on it. That might have kind of pulled us back a little bit. So we go into hand-to-hand against a great team. We get shell shocked. We don't do our best stuff, and taking away nothing from them. We lost that game, had to regroup, and that was kind of what like you say, we regrouped. We went on the road to Battery Creek to finish out the year, and I just told the guys, our season can go one of two ways, and they've definitely taken the road that I was like, we're going to take care of you, as we always do, but we've got to do it the way that we've been doing it for a long time. And we know our staff's been coaching you. And I really think last week was a good example of like, we've kind of hit a good peak. We've got a good routine. The guys are healthy. The guys know that our systems and the things that we do can work, at a consistent level against good teams. And so I feel good about where we're at, and I'm always like a nervous wreck. I hate being like a pessimist. I feel like my staff, I'm always kind of like you guys are like the eternal optimist, and like in the back, like in my office, I just get kind of pessimistic. And so I'm always like, I don't think I have that recurring nightmare. I don't think we can score. So I'm always like, we're never going to score. And we get one, and I'm just like, all right, okay, that's
good to go now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the monkey off the back, but it's every game. No matter who we're playing, it's like, we can't score. I don't know why. It's probably one of the worst things about me as a coach or a person, but I was like, I don't know what it is. I just like go in there and I'm like, we can't score. And I mean, I know that's not the case, but yeah, it's just like my quirk.
So, Coach, we're catching you, Wednesday night, so the proverbial hay is in the barn at this point. But I got to ask you, we've alluded to it earlier in the interview. Got a tough matchup against BC this week. Yeah. What challenges do the Bearcats present for this contest on Friday, and what have you seen in practice this week to let you know that you're going to be successful?
Yeah, so not only you can watch it on film and you can see like stats and things. When you look online and see Twitter and stuff like that, they've got really good players. They're running back. They have one that's going to the Shrine Bowl, and they have one that I feel number 2. So number 1's going to the Shrine Bowl. Number 2, that kind of is like that same Sherrod KJ thing that we have. I feel is just as good, if not, a different type, but a different. So great running backs. With that, they have an extremely large and physical offensive line. And you can see it, and that's their MO. Like, it's not like I'm, saying anything that, people can't see, but I had the chance to coach in the Junior Bowl last year, and 2 of those offensive linemen, obviously juniors at the time, are now seniors. So, I mean, I know their left tackle and left guard, and they move them around a good bit too, but those 2 cats are legit and big physical kids and aggressive. And I think one of them is going to the North-South game, and both of them are college prospects. So that they're not the only 2. They have a big offensive line. They have really good skill players. I just don't think, when they have to use them, they use them as like receivers, but they'll get them the ball in space and stuff like that. And, kind of like we do with Troy. And they're going to be a tough thing to stop. I mean, we have to really, slow the game down on offense, and that's, we have to limit possessions. We have to make special teams as a way to steal a couple of plays here and there. And we got to be really good in kind of the pieces like around that, because I don't think, you shut out a team like Brooklyn Casey. I think you try to outscore them maybe. And so our whole plan, really relies on, we know that they're going to get yardage. They're going to be aggressive, and, they're equally as big, and physical on defense. I just think sometimes they score so quick. It's kind of like what happened to us in the beginning of the year. You score so quick. Sometimes the defense is on the field for a long time.
Sure.
KJ and Jerel would bust off like 80-yarder one-play drives, and the defense is back out there. And, so we're just trying to limit that a little bit and, grind the game out. And I think they know that. I mean, it's like one of those things, like you can send them the play sheet and they just have to stop it. But I think they know what we're both going to try to do. And it's who stops it the best, I guess. So big physical team, man, well coached, aggressive group, sometimes you want to make sure your team's aggressive and plays to that echo of the whistle and with that toughness, and they do. So we've got to match that, if not go past it.
Coach, and Brooklyn Casey has, a great environment, great home field advantage there. I haven't had a chance to go to a Philip Simmons game yet. I know Jerel did this year. What's it been like having that kind of community embrace you guys as that school has really grown and turned into, a football powerhouse this year especially? How has it been kind of seeing that community come together and just kind of get behind your team on Friday nights?
No, it's fun, man. It's got like this small town feel where there's not much to do. Like we still have like a lot to do, and sure, kids are still going to do whatever, play Fortnite or whatever it is, But like it's fun to see kind of like how we've progressed that. And, when we first started, it was like, what's the name of this team? Like people are like, it's Simmons High School. Like even in our own community, they're like, what is it, like a schsfb school? Like, it's just like, I've answered a lot of questions on it, a long time ago. And so that was like one of the things I was like, we've got to make this thing branded. We've got to make this thing, fun. We've got to make this environment cool. And, I think we've done a really good job of that with our, administration, our booster club have done a really good job of just the game day atmosphere. We've added a few different pieces to it to try to really ramp it up, make kids want to play for the Iron Horses on a Friday night kind of thing. And that's been cool. When we were rolling at like Ashley Ridge and at Wando, those places were popping. It was like the only thing to do in town. And in Mount Pleasant, especially with Wando, that was tough to do, let alone now when you have 3 schools that are really, competing for those athletes. It was a cool, slow process, I will say. And it's really kind of hit that peak these last couple of years, the 2021, 22, 23 season, where you're, without looking at ticket sales and stuff like that, which we have access to, it's like, it's going to be a big game. Like the Buford game, the Hanahan game, there were going to be big games. Last week in the first round of the playoffs, we knew it was going to be a big game. But I think we've been on the road so much this year that we're all right there too. We went 4 games in a row on the road, and I think our guys are prepared for that. But it's been fun, man. I enjoy seeing the kids want to play Iron Horse football now. We got a little youth league. We got a B team, and so we're kind of at that point where it's like it continues to just keep producing these kids that want to play Iron Horse football, and I think that's probably been the most fun for me. And my daughter loves it. She's in the 6th grade. I think she really likes being the head coach's daughter and kind of that the perks that come with it. And she might use it to her advantage sometimes to get out of trouble or something. So she doesn't get out of trouble here at the house, but she's having those, like my wife at the elementary school, my daughter at the middle school, and then me at the, the 3rd person hired at the high school and still standing, it's been a pretty cool and kind of surreal moment for our family.
That's awesome, Coach. We're going to shift gears before we let you get out of here. I know you're busy. We got to ask this question that we ask all coaches. We just had Coach Wilkes on from Oceanside a couple weeks ago, so we've got a little overlap here. But what are some of your favorite restaurants in that Charleston, Wando area? God,
man, that's like, you talk about tough questions, right? It's like,
what's your favorite? The hardest one of the night.
It's like, what's your favorite music? And you're like, geez, let's sit down and talk about what the mindset is. What's the vibe right now? I mean, dude, I'm kind of like I worked in a restaurant in college to get a couple bucks over on there on Isle of Palms. It's no longer there anymore. That's how long ago that's been. But my God, man, I love big wing guy. So I love Blues. It's like right next to my house. I can drive the golf cart there. That's fun. If you start going down the road, man, it's like I met my wife at Red Drum, which is still here after like 20 years, which is wild. Nice. That's right there on, that Shem Creek area. Huge Red Drum fan. You go to Shem Creek, you can't go wrong. I mean, Tavern and Table, you've got Saltwater Cowboys, can't get my wife out of that place sometimes, and then you go downtown and I mean, it's something new pops up all the time. A great Italian place called Indaco. Love that place.
Yes.
It's cliche as can be, but I'll tell you, Halls is like the place. Oh. I mean, I know it's tough. Like, it's such like, almost like it's an easy thing to say, but they do it up, man. And I don't know if they got like a computer thing that lets them know, like, when you come back, the guy's always like, hey, how's the season go? Stuff like that. Like it's, it's the little touches that really kind of add to
atmosphere. They do a great job. They do a great job.
They do a good job. Little hole in the wall spots that, I'm just like, like I was saying, huge wing guy. I love the pizza over here. It's Familiaris. It's like they have a couple. It's like a chain, but like a local chain. They're right by the school, and that's kind of our post-game win celebration spot. So, man, I could go on.
No.
Daniel Island. I don't want to leave out the locals. Okay. So I'm going to
Gotcha.
say Daniel Island has King's Tide and then Max Place. Max Place is a bar. It's been there forever, like a bar restaurant. King's Tide's kind of the date night place. I mean, you kind of hit those two spots hand in hand. You might start at one, go to the next one, vice versa. So, I mean, it could go on for a while.
Well, funny you ask about the music, Coach. So let's think about Friday night. Maybe you're getting on the bus for this BC game. What's on that pregame playlist for you?
Yeah, weird. I'm kind of on the like, so our defensive coordinator, Alex Renner, one of my best friends, he's on like this dubstep, like this stuff that like I hear out of his headphones is just like ridiculous. Okay. There's a few rap songs that the kids play that we always joke, like one of our guys will be like, oh, this is a song that I played at my wedding. That's obviously not the case. But some of them they get like, you know, they get me. I don't know what they are. I feel old, but it's like, you know, the beats they have. Now, for me, I'll knock out. I have this one Widespread Panic song that I've listened to before every game since I was in college. I don't like Widespread Panic. Like I don't go to concerts. It's called Climb to Safety. I put it on before we either walk into like the 6:30 kickoff or we're rolling up on the bus to a place. It's just like, what do you call, like now it's just superstition. I mean, unbelievable superstition. I like to listen to a little bit more mellow stuff. I like a local band here. They're called Susto. All these kids have no idea who they are, but like I follow them like crazy. That's kind of my band. And then my daughter got me hooked on the Zach Bryan guy, and some of his stuff is like that mellow mood that I like to kind of just get into it. And then, you know, to ramp it up, I just do the Thunderstruck by AC/DC. That kind of gets the ramped going. So it is eclectic, I would say, and not something that people would be like, that's pretty normal. That, you know, the Widespread Panic one's my favorite because I couldn't name one other song by Widespread Panic. I have no idea how it came about. I was dating a girl that was a huge spread head in like college, and I was like, that song was pretty cool. Started listening to it before every game, and then it just became superstition. So,
Coach, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Just all over the place.
Last one before we let you get out of here. It's crazy to think 6 years of varsity football. You've already made it to the third round, you know, at Philip Simmons. But what will it take to make a deeper run in the postseason with this, you know, this version of your team? And do you think that they're poised to do so?
You know, I think this year we have a good shot. I think 2 years ago we made it to the third round. We didn't have as many of the skill guys that we have now. Similar offensive lines, except for that one was a little older. This one's a little bigger at certain spots, but not as seasoned, if you will. When you look around the state and you see the teams that are just like predominantly going to championship level football, let's call it like region, lower state. I think you have to understand that it's a lot of, you have to be able to run the football. It doesn't mean you got to do it all the time, but run it when you want to. To do that, I think we all know that it takes some strong, big people. And the flip side of that is stopping the run takes strong, big people. And so at places I've been that have been successful and made deep runs, and places that I've been that we haven't maybe made it, and maybe our ceiling wasn't able to get to that compared to these other teams, is kind of that O-line, D-line, and the size and the aggressiveness. If you can get that right, I think everybody kind of has these athletes that they can pull in, you know, find a really fast guy for running back, find some guys that can, you know, everybody seems to have a guy that can throw it and, you know, get in the right position. But I think really it comes down to the two lines, man. I think, you know, you look at like a Dillon and a Buford when they're rolling, and this year's Hanahan team, Camden, you know, so I'm just going 3A. They're huge in the spots that you need to be huge. And then they have really good pieces around it. So I don't think you can ever overcome not having that physical offensive and defensive line. That has been what slowed us down in previous years, except for like 2021, had a good group. All seniors, though, had to replace them. This year's group's a little younger, but we have gotten bigger and stronger and a little bit more aggressive. And I think if they can keep growing and playing, then we could make that run. But it is going to be in that offensive and defensive line room where we make that decision how far we're going to go.
Well, this has been great. I want everyone to go follow Coach Bendig and the Iron Horses program on Twitter and Facebook. They do a great job posting updates and highlights of their kids. Definitely check them out on there. Like I mentioned, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. movingchains.com. podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Moving the Chains brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Jerel, anything else for Coach? We'll let him go tonight.
Coach Bendig, we just want to thank you so much, for giving us this time, being so gracious, allowing us to attend a game earlier this year and, follow your program. And it's been awesome to see you guys this year. And it's going to be awesome to see as you guys continue to expand and grow. Going to be 5A here in a little bit before we know it, the way that Charleston area is growing. But just continued success. You guys stay healthy and just keep balling.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for what you do. I knew about you guys before. And, Jerel, when we got a chance to speak there, I knew, I'd followed it and stuff like that, but I got really into that. But my defensive coordinator is a huge fan. I was like, how's it going to go? Make sure you tell me. I catch snippets, rarely do I sit down and see something I can watch for that long, but it's like he would tell me. So he prepped me, and you guys are doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. It's a huge thing for the state for what you guys do.
Coach, we appreciate the kind words. You really do. We look forward to seeing you again here down the stretch run, and best of luck the rest of the way. All right.
I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it.